International People's Tribunal, which was in The Hague in 2015 for the 50th anniversary of the massacres. We'll talk about that. Then to the extreme right, to the extreme right, it's Sanja Angelovska. She is from Macedonia, and she's a psychologist and a peace activist. And I asked her before we met here if she is only concentrating on one region of the world, for example, where she comes from, the Western Balkans, or but she has a more universal approach to things, so we will talk about that too. And maybe some of you who live here in Ilmenau know Mira Rochyadi-Reetz. I should have asked you about the pronunciation of your name. Okay. She is here too, because we have so many Indonesians, also a big community here, and she is here to give us insight on what the new generations think, how things are changing in Indonesia, so we'll hope to speak about that too. I will introduce Rüdiger Bender too before he arrives. He is a member of the Green Party and is very active in the so-called Topf und Söhne. Most of you are probably not that familiar with it. This is the company, Topf und Söhne was the company which was responsible for building the crematoria in Auschwitz. It had its headquarters in Erfurt, and on the former headquarters of the Topf und Söhne company, they now have a memorial site. I have to introduce myself too. I'm a historian, and I work in Berlin at the Holocaust Memorial. Maybe most of you know it. This is quite a large memorial made out of thousands of stones near the Brandenburg Gate. And there's also an exhibition on the Holocaust. And I have to say that in our daily work, we normally are not used so much to comparativistic issues. Because our main issue is to inform people about the Holocaust, so the mass murder of Jews by the Nazis and their allies during the Second World War. But for me, it was when I heard about this panel and I was asked to take over this panel, I was very happy to do that, because for us also it's very interesting to look at how other societies are trying to cope with these traumatic experiences. I have to say, I've seen this movie now for the second time, and I have to admit, when 2 years ago I first saw it on TV, I was very irritated by this movie, and mostly because I had no real background information. Rüdiger Bender has arrived, just in time, because you are just getting started. Hello. So I have to say I was quite irritated, because what I'm missing here, mostly in this movie, I have to say, is the context. When you look at this movie as someone who is not very familiar with Indonesian history and society, you have no idea what is going on actually. So who are these people? The only explanation you get at the beginning is something very shady. You see, there was a government, it was overthrown by the military, and then suddenly gangsters and paramilitaries arrived and they killed hundreds of thousands of people, but you don't really get the context. Why does it happen? And is it just an eruption of violence out of nowhere? So what did you think about this move when you first saw it? Did you think it was a step in the right direction to make this better known in the world? Or did you think maybe it should have been done differently?
Yes, sure. Actually, okay.
I think it's on.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, we are really thankful to Joshua. Sure, before this film, there were some films about 65. For example, Riding the Tiger. Sorry, now it's better? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So before Joshua did this film, there were some film about 65, for example, Riding the Tiger or Shadows Play, yeah? And after 1998, also a lot of films about 65 made by the victims. But this film was the breaking through internationally. This film in 2013 won around 35 awards all over the world. Even the Wall Street Journal wrote about it. So it was amazing for us also, and it broke the silence. I can say it broke the silence, and it gave us the right direction, and it was also one of the most important things why we built up our International People's Tribunal in The Hague. On March 2013, we saw the film for the first time in The Hague. Joshua was there. It was the first release in the Netherlands, yeah? And after the film, so just like now, we did some discussion between Joshua and some people. There were around 5 or 6 victims, exiled in the Netherlands, and then a lot of journalists, all of them almost Indonesian, and also the Netherlands people who are interested on Indonesian issue. And Joshua, with his sympathetic smile, said to us, as a filmmaker, I already did something for 65. And you people, what are you going to do to solve this case? And it makes us to think about, to look for the possibility, to look for the necessity, to look for the challenges. And after a year, there's the foundation of IPT were built up in March 2014. And as you said, that we managed to organize the IPT. Mira asked me just today, how can we finance that issue? It's a lot of contribution. Without a lot of helping hands all over the world, we could not manage to organize this event. We got 7 judges, one of it from South Africa. Yeah, our head judges is from South Africa, Zak Jacob. We got 7 prosecutors. One of it is a German lady. I was very proud of it. I'm coming from Germany. And in this prosecutor, one of them is one Germany. And we got 20 witnesses. And all of them work voluntarily. They got no honours, not a single cent. And 100 young people just like you helped us all over 4 days. And after the tribunal, after 7 months, on July 20 last year, the verdict was get out. And back to this film, I have to say, why IPT was burned out, was burned. On the film, we saw how the impunity are still going on in Indonesia. The killers they are very proud, especially Adi. He said, I'm not feeling guilty. I do nothing. It's war, and I will be very proud if people invite me to The Hague. Unfortunately, he was already dead as we organized the tribunal. Impunity is still going on until today. It's still going on. Second, the victims are still discriminated and stigmatization. They are still living in fear until today. And the third, the Indonesian state do nothing until today. Jokowi promised on his campaign to solve the case of 65, but last week he said, if any communist, come on, you have to cut up. You want to say something?
Can we do that afterwards? I will open, okay, go on.
Okay, then I will finish only until verdict. The judges gave the verdict on July 20th last year. And we showed the verdict in 5 countries, in Melbourne, Jakarta, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, again, yeah, and Stockholm. The verdict is not a verdict as a furnace, but it was a finding and a recommendation for the Indonesian government. First, the Indonesian government or the Indonesian state has to acknowledge that it was a state crimes against humanity happened in 1965 and afterwards. Second, it must be the justice being for the victims. The truth have to come out. The third, the right of the victims, the good name of the victim, the political right of the victim has to be brought back. Sorry.
Yeah. No.
And the most important, the second verdict is the genocide against Chinese ethnic. We saw on the film, Adi said, we got a list of books with the Chinese names. And every Chinese in Jalan Sudirman, we cut it. If you remember on the film. And he said also, the future of my father-in-law, the father of my girlfriend, I have to kill him. Even he is the father of my girlfriend. But I have to kill him because he is a Chinese. And on the tribunal, we have the proof of evidence through the document, the witnesses, and also the statement from the killers that it was a genocide against the Chinese ethnics in four states: Aceh, Medan, Makassar, and Lombok. That's all. Thank you very much. Sorry.
No problem, no problem. But I have to get back to one thing, because there are many Indonesians here and many who are not familiar with Indonesia at all. And until 2 weeks ago, I was one of them. We have to provide some context. So Indonesia becomes independent from the Netherlands. After that, there's 20 years of the founding father of the nation, Sukarno, is president. And this is being characterized as so-called guided democracy. He wants to keep this huge archipelago of, I don't know, thousands and thousands of islands with many, many different regions, many different religions, many different cultures, many different social groups, tries to keep them together by pushing for national unity, but also for social reform and a strong military. And the communists, this is the Cold War, and the Communist Party is one of the biggest communist parties in the world at that time. Not meaning that Indonesia is really becoming a communist country, but they do push for social reform, which means there is social conflict going on. At the same time, Indonesia is in armed conflicts with Malaysia, and then they are in conflicting interests with the US and with capitalist countries. So they are not in the Soviet bloc, but not in the Western capitalist world either. So there's this huge communist pressure, and they have organizations all over, and there are millions and millions of people are really organized in communist and near-communist organizations. Some of them are pushing for land reform. Then there are volcanoes erupting, which means that people are starving in many places. So there's huge social conflicts going on, and what happens is that in 1965 there is suddenly turmoil going on. I'll not get into the details, but one part of the military, led by General Suharto, who later became president until 1998, starts to break down on those who have more sympathies with the leftists. And then, suddenly, all over the country, violence erupts against communists or those who are supposed to be communists. And this is a very diffuse thing. So you cannot really say the army is massacring people, because at some places the army is holding the people back. At other places, paramilitaries appear and start to kill people. At some places, villages suddenly kill their neighbors. And there is this atmosphere of violence erupting all over the country in different regions, in different matters. And in just a matter of months, hundreds of thousands of people are killed. And not all of them are communists, and not all of them are leftists. So they are killed for different reasons. And what makes this very, very difficult, that until 1998, Suharto was in power. These people were, these paramilitaries really thought they did the right thing. They do things so until today. And although after 1998, many changes happened in Indonesia, the army is still the same, and there are still many people in the elites who are still in power. So that makes things very difficult. And that's why it was very strange for us probably to look at a movie where the perpetrators are proud of what they have done. Normally, maybe not normally, but it's, you're thinking, who are the victims actually, and why are they not talking? I would probably think that the victims would very much like to talk, but in this social context, it's very difficult to do so. So I would maybe pass the word on to Sonia and ask her about her experiences of if she has ever seen anything like it, like in other conflict contexts where the perpetrators are coming out to talk, and so proudly, because in the German context, I'm much more used to perpetrators who are trying to, saying that they are not perpetrators at all, or if they are admitting that they have done something, then they would shove it maybe on their bosses, or think that it had to be done, it was necessary, sorry, but otherwise they would try to diminish it. And I'm not. So, what are your experiences? And you need a microphone.
It works. Thanks. So, being honest, I haven't seen a documentary like this where perpetrators are speaking so proudly about the deeds that they have done. I have watched documentaries where maybe some of the perpetrators were telling a story, but not in that direct way as Anwar did and his gang. I would start with one sentence that it's very general. We may meet it everywhere on the social media, and it's used by one author in social psychology. And it says, "Understanding now the human condition, I dedicate this book to my dog." So, yeah, it may sound really funny, but it is not funny. Like, if we were in a smaller group this evening, I would ask you, what are the feelings that you are having now, considering the fact that we are here living in the 21st century, we're civilized, educated, we are peace activists, human rights activists, we are change makers, or some of you will be in the near future, which is really good to your societies, since we are all coming here from different parts of the world facing different conflicts. I have some friends from Indonesia, and they never have spoken about this in this way. When we were discussing this panel, I knew that there are some things and issues in Indonesia, since I'm so much interested into conflicts, especially intergroup conflicts. And for me, this was something really, really new. New in a way that there's a still part in the world where perpetrators are so much celebrated. And they're walking on the streets as their gods, like in the name of the good for the whole nation, they killed thousands of people. So what I would like to speak is about the emotions and different stages that are in different stages, what kind of emotions people are facing. And I was really surprised at the end of this documentary when I saw that I thought that Anwar, he would never have a feeling of guilt. I was really surprised. But it turns out that still at the end he's facing the consequences that he has done earlier when he was like young. I won't go in any discussions about him as an individual, because this is not the topic of this evening panel. That is something like maybe clinical psychologists are supposed to do about him and the people around him. Like, it is not a coincidence that people like him did so much killings in that time, like the ones that are in power and have the money of course, they weren't the ones that killed all those people. So, coming back to the general topic, like the genocide in Indonesia, that is how it's known for the wider community and audience. There are two general definitions, whether that is democide, when the government is killing its own people, and there is a number that killings should meet, it's up to 1 million people that should be killed by the government, or it is a genocide. So, and you know, I think that I won't be an optimist this evening here, like I'm going to be very realistic that it is in the human nature also to kill people. And this is why I don't want to be boring, but I will read another sentence which simplifies what I want to say. By the very fact that he forms part of an organized group, a man descends several things down the ladder of civilization. Isolated, he may be a cultivated individual in a crowd. He is barbarian, that is, a creature acting by instinct. So this is by Gustave Le Bon in The Crowd. So it is much more easier conditionally said, to act in a crowd, because at that moment, these people or individuals, they are thinking that they are not going to be accountable for the deeds that they have done. This is what they are thinking. And in social psychology, there is a research has proven that what is narcissism on individual level, it is nationalism on a group level. So as you can notice, these characters from this evening that we have seen, at some level, they are all narcissists. They are so much full with themselves, with everything that they have done. They want their own reflection in the mirror, especially Anwar. He was describing the acts of killings, but in the same time, at the very beginning, the focus wasn't on the details of the killings that he did, but he focused on the clothes that he wore. Like he said, I will never going to wear white pants again. Like they don't suit me, and that tells a lot about this character and the people around him. What I was also surprised, beside the feeling of guilt, he started feeling guilt about what he has done. At the end of this documentary, he wanted to show himself in the role of a victim in front of his nephews. He asked them to come and to watch out the scene when he was tortured in the same way he tortured thousands of people and killed them. And then it showed up that he empathized with his victims, which is paradoxal. But for me personally and professionally as a psychologist, it's a good sign, because at least after, I don't know, almost 30 years, he started to rethink what he has done.
I have to say that I saw it differently, because I thought that what he is afraid of, that he is having nightmares, and he is maybe afraid of going to hell, but he's not really having empathy with the victims. He has at one moment maybe, but normally he says, I don't want these nightmares, I want them to go away. So he's thinking more of himself, actually.
Maybe that can be the case also. I agree with you. Like we cannot say like 100% that he's empathizing. He knows that the best. But what for sure he started feeling is he has the feeling of guilt, and somehow like he started to rethink the deeds that he has done when he was younger. Although in the very beginning or in the time when he did all these things, I'm sure he wasn't in contact with himself, and he said that he was taking some other things that were that kept him away from the things that he has done.
Okay, I would like to turn to Mira now, because just to ask, what effect does this film and this discussion and the IPT's work have on Indonesian society? And is what Joshua trying to imply in this movie that it's gangsters, paramilitaries, maybe the army who are the perpetrators? So it's a clearly defined group. Whereas I think the situation is more complicated because huge parts of Indonesian society were very much involved in the murders, also on the perpetrator side. So it's very, very difficult to draw the lines between victims, perpetrators, bystanders. So do you think there is a real discussion going on, or is it actually possible during the political situation Indonesia is still in, or would political change be the condition which would have to be done before there could be open discussion about this? What is your feeling? Just get this one.
Okay. So, my feeling. You have lots of questions packed in one.
I know.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's only one sentence. Before I discuss, or before I said what is the feeling of people in Indonesia, I would like to express my feeling here tonight. And I hope it will not take too long, but when a few months ago, Andreas von ISWI, Andy, come over to my office and said, we would like to screen this movie, a very inconvenient movie about Indonesia. What do you think? And I'm really honored to be asked by ISWI about that, because there are not many Indonesians here in Ilmenau in comparison to other international students community. But we try to do our best to give a good perception towards Indonesia, to show that Indonesia is a democratic country. We have making events here, discussions, to show, yes, we are the biggest a country with 17,000 islands, just to give a context to the discourse that we have today. 17,000 islands and many religions, 300 different languages and tribes. It is a complex. We try to show a positive side of Indonesia. And I think we did a good job. And actually, when ISWI asked about this, I come into my mind, it could destroy actually our positive effort to bring a good image on Indonesia. But then, again, I asked and discussed with other fellow Indonesians and said, yes, we, as Indonesian students, we try to promote Indonesia as a democratic country, but it will be useless if we not dare to talk about uncomfortable things that we have here. So, and I'm very happy that lots of effort conducted to refresh, not to refresh actually. When on the flyers you see that let's forget. I think it said let's forget. In my generation, maybe not from Tante Sri, I call her Tante Sri. Not in the generation of Tante Sri, but in my generation and maybe the generation after me, the history like this is not happen, because it's never told in that millions of Indonesians killed by Indonesians never told in our history book. I grew up where the winner are not the Communist Party, and the Communist is the bad guy. Yeah, so it's not that we forget; it's about it's introducing it to us. And I live here in Germany like I think 8 years now. I think I would disagree with Tante Sri when she said there's in Indonesia we do nothing about it. Actually, we did. I think to the fact that we are here today discussing about this particular matter, it shows us that we actually did something. And actually, we try to acknowledge our own history, I think. And there's a lot of things happen that there's, and when you say at the beginning that we have to look up how the German working with their history, I think it takes a lot of things. If you, as a social scientist, if you compare something, then you compare something that completely the same to seek differences, or you seek something, you compare something different to seek similarities. So comparing Indonesia with Germany is not apple to apple, because in so many things, in so many cases, we are so different. But I do aware that Indonesians also have to look up and see it. And as I'm from the Media and Communication Science Institute here, I think the discussion is also part of the media. Even today, I'm a big fan of public media in Germany. For international, public media is not the same with state-owned media. They give you information. Even this morning, I still hear the latest discussion about Holocaust in Deutschlandfunk. It's like a public radio, and I feel like it is educating. And in Indonesia, we don't have a public television. We have state-owned television, yes, and the rest of them is commercials. So for the German here, you can imagine to have one state broadcast, and the rest is RTL and Fox, yeah? So I think I really encourage us to have something like this, because am I losing focus? Or
Go on.
No, yeah, I mean that we could learn from the German and to see that how good is the German in working out with their past. But to compare it directly, yes, you may not disagree. I will also look at that. I mean, even Germany, who already is so good in communicating their past, still have a problem today with the right extremists here. It still exists. And yes, in Indonesia, for me, it may not be enough, but I think the discussion is rising, especially on the internet. The alternative media also discussing about this, not the mainstream media. But I will not lose hope to trust my history and learn from it. Okay. I think that's for me.
I think that, yeah. I think that you are doing my job very well, because this is exactly what I wanted to bring Mr. Bender into the discussion. And one thing, from my point of view, without democratic structures, without free speech, it's not really possible. So, for example, if you are thinking, why didn't the Hungarians, I'm a Hungarian, by the way, why didn't the Hungarians speak about what they did to the Jews during German occupation until the 1990s? Thing is, it wasn't a democratic country. It was a communist dictatorship. Media was controlled, and no one was politically, and no one was interested in this subject at all. And now what you are saying is also a very, very important point, that if you are it's not an unpatriotic act to speak openly about the difficult chapters in a country's past, because you have to face what happened. You have to be as objective as possible about it, because lies are going to fall back on you. That's my personal conviction. But what do you think about... it's a very, very provocative and difficult question for Germans, especially in dealing with memorial sites, because many in Germany think, and many outside of Germany think, that Germany has done an extremely good job in dealing with the past, and Germany should be a role model for the whole world, for all these traumatized societies. So, would you agree with that opinion? And so, is Germany a role model? And if yes, why? And if no, why not? Or is the answer somewhere in between?
So, first of all, I really want to thank you, because where we agree is that we are never finished with this job, and we need those people you addressed as future and potential change makers and activists. Having a look at the German history of dealing with this past, it is a rather complicated one. And it always needs civil society to address the questions, were they really heard? So it came quite easy at the beginning to say, well, Hitler and the Nazis did this and this. And suddenly you have this huge group of victims, and everybody was some kind of victim, even party members and so on. And then continuing perpetrators who would not laugh and brag about their deeds, but who would claim, well, I just fulfilled orders. And therefore it was so important to have the grand picture, and at the same time to dig deep and to find out exactly where are the limits, but the chances for own decision-making, own action. And therefore, so as you can see here, Förderkreis Erinnerungsort Topf and Söhne, Topf and Sons, an Erfurt firm, so being champions of very so dignified crematorium ovens for cities like Weimar, but out of their own initiative started to build ovens for concentration camps, starting with Buchenwald close to Weimar, but ending up with Auschwitz and Auschwitz-Birkenau, and doing exactly the opposite. So burning human corpses as if they were animal corpses after some cattle disease or industrial waste. And after the war, the claim was, well, we had to. The SS demanded it. And looking just for the business papers, the correspondence, we can prove that they always have been 1 or 2 steps ahead, trying to develop a market, trying to be better than the competitors in Berlin. And you suddenly have 2 engineers in the same firm fighting with each other, competing with each other for the best methods of doing so. And you have 1 engineer traveling to Auschwitz, witnessing the new technology of industrialized killing by using gas chambers. And then he analyzed it and realized it takes so long time. There is a way to optimize it. Putting up a ventilation system, optimizing it up to the effect that between 2,000 and 3,000 more people could be killed, with the effect that more ovens needed. And what I want to point out, we talk about perpetrators, not at all resembling the perpetrators we have seen in this film, and not resembling some of the more famous or infamous SS killers. Doing what has much more to do with the technical university, being at a drafting table, coming up with new designs, innovations, high-tech, not sure for piety in this case, same person, but for efficiency in mass burning of industrialized killed victims. And this caused lots of uproar in Erfurt, by the mayor, by lots of people in the city, because they thought that, therefore I was so thankful, well, we try to establish a good image of the city. We want to be the city of gardens, new university, and reformation and whatsoever. And this is bad for us. So, and we started to pick up your point to say, well, we owe it to the victims but we owe it to us, because we need to understand how does it work. That people who have sort of an unproblematic biography up to this point, for example, this chief engineer Prüfer who gave papers on cremations with highest degree of piety, very expensive systems for cremation, that's most dignified way of dealing with a human corpse, and doing exactly the other way around without orders. The orders he gave himself. And he himself decided, and all the other people in the firm, that they didn't even need to have a written statement by the SS or by whoever. These groups of people don't need to be treated as human beings. So he just took for granted whoever got arrested by the Gestapo, whoever got into the hands of the SS in whatever camp, does not need to be treated like a human being. And therefore, what we owe to the victims, that you said it so nicely, that the truth has to come out on the table. The story needs to be told. That's what we owe to ourselves and to every single one of us, because every single one could suddenly be member of a group somebody defines as less worthy, sort of not being included in any concepts of right, of Volksgemeinschaft or whatever. But what made, just one point, so where I see the problem with this, so the disturbing point of this film, where we have to talk about. The question is, how do we do this? How do we get to the core of the story? How do we get all the facts of the crime? And how do we enable ourselves to understand the perpetrators in order to understand the challenges we face ourselves, perhaps, where are our blind spots, without secondary victimization of the victims? And that's just the story. When we just imagine perpetrators in the German case undergoing this kind of reenacting their own deeds, so with his laughter, with his sort of ridiculing the victims, we see the problem we are facing. It was a means to get the story, to add the first part of what do we owe to the victims. The truth has to come out. It helped to get the truth out. But was it a dignified way to deal with the victims in order to help them re-establishing the offspring of the new generations of those who have been victimized, to have their own names, their own stories, and to reinstate their own dignity. That's a problem. That's a problem we have, for example, in KZ memorials. When you have these films by the Allies with piles of human corpses, and suddenly, for example, in Buchenwald, you could go there and you see big faces of victims in the most awful situation. So it helps to really understand how horrendous the crime is, but how to make sure that the reaction is not a shock and being appalled, but in a way that it is a secondary victimization of those who have been victimized first. And that's why we try to tell the stories of those, so to tell the lives that have been cut off. Okay. So, sorry.
No problem. Thank you. I will have one last question to Sonia, and then open up for your questions, because there are going to be many. One more question. Do you think, as a psychologist, that there is a pattern of how much time has to pass until a society starts to talk about things? Because I don't know of any example, well, sometimes you have examples that immediately after the crimes are done, some of the victims write books. That happened after the Holocaust. In 1945, there were hundreds and hundreds of books published everywhere in Eastern Europe, in Western Europe, by victims. And then suddenly, for years, nothing else comes. In Israel, where about a third of the society were Holocaust survivors who came from Europe, they didn't talk about this at all until the first time they talked about this was the Eichmann trial of 1961, when the first time, actually, the victims were asked about what they were thinking. And suddenly, some people start to talk, and some have never talked at all. So, is there a pattern? How much time has to pass? And, very provocative question, because many people say, let's forget about everything, especially in societies where there are perpetrators and there are victims. Some people are always saying, let's forget about the past, let's look into the future. Is it possible, in your point of view, to have a peaceful, free society based on silence, or is it going to explode in our faces?
Amnesia.
Yes, you need a microphone. Yeah. The other microphone. Yeah.
Thanks. There is no pattern how long there should be, like how long time there should pass so a society can come to a process of resolution or reconciliation. It depends on the structure of the society, of the culture, of the past, of the how big the trauma was, and here we can see that it was really big trauma, and still the society of Indonesia is still in the face of fear. So now the moment that we are speaking now is kind of breaking the silence, but breaking the silence out of Indonesia, with the help of the movie of Oppenheimer. Thanks to him, he did this thing. Otherwise, I'm not sure that that society itself at this moment has the strength to struggle with that trauma. You mentioned the case of German, you mentioned the case with the Jews that moved to Israel and created their own state there back in 1948. But these cases are very separate for the ones in Indonesia. Like it is like personality. There are no two identical personalities. It is the same with the society, because society is formed by individuals. And there is a collective trauma. And it is not a secret, like it was said in the documentary, it's a public secret. Everyone knows what has happened, but no one has the strength and the courage to talk about at this stage. And the second question was...
do you think you can base a society, a free and peaceful society on...
And forget about it. No way.
Okay.
No way. Like, that's impossible. If people don't speak about this now or in the next 5 or 10 years, we can consider this phase in a phase of moratorium, in a phase of a pre-escalation of a new conflict. If this generation don't speak, then the next generation will speak for sure. The children of the victims or their nephews, they will speak for sure. So I think that in this case, there should be like, the international community should help a little bit with this case of Indonesia, like in a more peaceful way. Dialogue should be implemented in this society. They should start with the history. They should reshape the history. As other speakers from this panel said, the history is written from the one that have won the battle. In this case, these are the ones that did these killings. So it is not that everyone accept that as a reality. In order to build a society that will be peaceful, we have to transform. And transformation happens at every level: cultural, educational, personal, scientific level, at every possible level where people are interacting. So, and this cannot happen if they don't try to forgive each other. They have to try. Whether they're going to forgive, that's another question, because forgiveness, it is the hardest phase in the process of reconciliation and conflict transformation. Like, we just say, let it go, but we can say it, but do we really mean it? It's another discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let's open up. I think there was a question back there, if I saw it right. No? Okay. Yes, I thought. And
thank you. I'm from Indonesia, and I don't want to ask a question. I just want to say something and share my opinion. Here, we cannot refuse that it is really happening, and still there's trauma in the society, especially for the Chinese. But me, I am actually a Chinese Indonesian, but I do not fear about this case because I'm sure that it's gonna change in the future, and it's gonna, people are starting to realize this thing is really important to be considered as a serious problem. And the main problem in Indonesia is we do not teach the children about the real history that happened. Maybe it could be, we can take example of Germany for teaching the children and the next generation about their history, but we didn't. But I'm sure it is gonna happen in Indonesia, and I have faith and hope for that, because our government are starting to be more democratic. It is not true that our government are do nothing. It is really important point that our government are still trying to create a better system of education, and that is the main point and the main key that can change everything. Can change the awareness of the next generation. And I'm sure that our generation, my generation, are starting to realize that about to speak up about this history. And we cannot only sitting down and watch and not realize anything about that. So basically, by making this film, is this one right thing that we can do? The government do not, just stop the making of the film, even though there's some problem in the process of this producing the film. But we finally the film was launched. That was a sign for the Indonesian democracy to be better in the next future. Thank you.
Do you want to say something about this? Okay. You too? Okay.
Thank you for the remarks. Sure, this is a huge job for. It will be a huge job for all of us, especially for the younger generation. I'm living not longer anymore. The point to build up the awareness, and this is our homework right now. This is the never-ending job. Professor Bender said that it will be never finished. And we should not think that we will be one time finished with this job, because we can only avoid this crime or this story not to happen anymore if we again and again remember about this case. It will never-ending story. It won't be finished. And also the remarks from her, I thank you very much, Sonia, that we should not forget it. A lot of people want to forget it, but we refuse to forget because we don't want to happen, to make it once again. And concerning the situation right now, sure, a lot of better things are already happening in Indonesia. We have more open, we have more freedom to express. Yeah. Now, I can talk with you about 65. It was not possible for me 5 years ago to talk openly in the open session like that, to talk about 65. I would like to propose to you, if you have some time and some interest, look at the Ingat 65. It's a story about the third generation of victims, and it's young people like you, and it will help us to solve this thing and to keep us to remember, because this is the purpose of, I think, also for this night, that we won't forget it. We refuse to forget.
I'll pass it on to you, but we had one remark, and you said it also. The thing about not forgetting is that you have to know about things. But would you also like to react to what you just heard?
I mean, I keep hearing about democracy, and I think it's not an aspirin, so it's not working on one night. And Indonesia starting to learn. We starting to learn our democracy openly to speak in public is in 1998. It's not even 20 years old. And I would say, yes, what we saw this evening is, for me, it's also quite embarrassing to say that, oh my God, it is part of my country, it is part of my people who's conducting something very humiliating like that. But for me, it is also a step for us to, if we see what we reach, of course it's never enough. I wish we do more. I wish the government will do more. However, I really appreciate what is actually happening here in Indonesia. For example, the discussion is not only take place in cities in Indonesia, it's even take place here in Germany. I remember 2015, we are the hosts in Frankfurter Buchmesse. It is a book fair, the biggest in the world. And the review from German media had said it's never been so political, because we in that forum discussed about 1965, this here in Germany. We even received a grant from our embassy to also discuss the same thing at the library, I think a year ago. Last week, I think on Sunday, our vice ambassador came here to Ilmenau to talk with us, and directly say, when we said, yeah, we're also going to have this discussion, and he said, I wish you a great discussion, and I think it's good that we discuss it here. And I think I wish that not only us, not only me and my fellow students here from Indonesia could learn about that, but also perhaps other students from other country, because I think lots of potentials from student coming to ISWI. I was also participant of ISWI 10 years ago, and if I see what have been my other participant from Nigeria, for example, in my year in 2007, is now one of the member of parliament there in Nigeria. Some of Indonesians who went here to ISWI 10 years ago also now doing lots of incredible things there in a civil society. And I hope that those who come here this year, more than 20 students from Indonesia flying more than 24 hours traveling, also could get many experience and also get to know our history here in Ilmenau. It's incredible for me. Yeah, knowing it, dealing with it, and hopefully arouse more discussion. And of course, I also thank you for Tante Sri for reminding us that we have this. We not only have a beautiful dance, we only have not very delicious food, we also have a history to learn.
Would you want to say something? Okay. And then if there are more questions, then keep them in mind, because we are coming back to you. Yeah.
I would just want to just say something about forgetting. When we talk about remembering, it's not the opposite of forgetting. Because very often what we look for in a culture of remembrance is the results of digging deeper and deeper and asking new questions, finding answers in the same material, or actually looking for the very first time at a new material nobody cared for about, in order to encourage those who never told their story. For example, you are from Stiftung Denkmal für die ermordeten Juden Europas. It was such a struggle to have this monument. And so much later, a monument for the killed Roma and Gypsy people have been put at the place. And I remember good speeches by the Chancellor and the President. And at the very same day, the Minister of Home Affairs did the opposite and declared that the threshold to kick out Balkan refugees, in brackets, Roma people, could be deported out of the country easier, to balance. And it's so hard. For example, you asked whether we are sort of the champions of a culture of remembrance. It's very interesting to see where are special blind spots. Special blind spots are exactly there. And when you have a look, then Sinti people, also called Zigeuner, Gypsies, have been, so the first camp has been planned in 1926 in the Weimar Republic. The first one erected in 1928. It was all in charge of the criminal police. And they kept in charge after 1945. Therefore, the Nuremberg trials said clear, Gestapo and SS are criminal institutions. But the criminal police, of course, wasn't. And they just changed a file. The Gypsy file was renamed in Landfahrer file, so traveling people file, including those who had an address. And this makes only sense in the case you keep on with the old racist point. Well, even in the case they are settled now, it's in their genes that they would, etc., etc. And it took so long to have done this tiny bit of financial aid of those who have been victimized, because for decades it was reinstalled to say, well, it's their style of life. And the result is that, for example, as a historian, try to talk to a Roma or Sinti family to talk about what happened. And so, and one way of what we do is to do research in the official records and give people their own story and of their ancestors killed, and leave it up to them, and then they start talking, because it's so much their experience. Whenever officials come and ask questions, it can be used against us. And there are a couple of other sort of still more marginalized victims groups, and it's very important to focus on them, as well as on kinds of perpetrators who are not those we have seen in the film, cutting throats, and so, but doing this, doing bureaucratic jobs in science, jobs in the media, and so on, and of highest highest efficiency, but having a habitus and an educational background that we have the impression, oh, these are people like us. So it's so much easier to distance yourself from those horrendous people. And therefore, exactly this is still very much needed. So and the resistance against this kind of culture of remembrance has been now in a degree, so with party AfD is now trying to gain votes by saying we want to do exactly the opposite and want to take a hold on all this. Therefore, it is still a struggle, and we have a chance as people from sort of the university field that we take what we find and bring it out on the public. That we have sozusagen effort. I do very often what I call Campus Anger in the middle of the city. Have 3 days of demonstration. Registered demonstration, but having old seminars or panel discussions like this. And people who walk by suddenly get involved. And that's sometimes an important point of having, you talked about transformation. Also we are transforming societies. Transformation is always going on and it can go backwards. There is no guarantee. That's not like in some psychological fields when you think you can't unlearn. Yes, you can, and we need to address new ways of immunizing conscience and having cover up memories.
Now we are getting into very difficult terrain, of course, because no. I'm just thinking that there's this huge discussion going on. Is actually knowing about things can it also prevent things happening again, or could it be also that people know about what happened and actually identify with what happened? So it could be very much possible that nowadays you are not denying the Holocaust that it happened, but you are saying it wasn't a bad thing. If you are a right-wing radical person. So it's a very difficult thing, and we still haven't talked about the GDR, of course, which already, because the big difference is we have to get to terms in Germany with 2 dictatorships, and one of them only affected one part of the country, and although now we are in an open society and so on, still the lives of these people is much more directly affected with what was going on. So they are not that old. For example, if you are 50 years old, I'm 42 now, so maybe my brother who is 50 could have been in a jail. He was actually in jail in Hungary once, but it wasn't that bad. Anyway, you probably have questions, and I see 1 hand going up there, and 2 hands going up. 3. Could we just collect the questions? And I would like to listen to 2 or 3 questions. Please, no long statements, but short questions, and then we'll try to answer them, and then probably we have to go and drink some water.
First, okay. Talking about the idea of global justice, I do believe that the victims of the massacre that happened in Indonesia demand for the justice, right? And my question is that will there be a chance for Indonesia's government that worked with the International People's Tribunal 1965 to bring justice or some sort of conviction toward the criminals or the peoples who killed the convictions of the communists, the people who accuse as a communist in the future? Thank you.
Yeah. My question is, how far is Indonesia right now? Because in Germany, after the Nazis, there was a really long phase where Nazis were still in positions as judges and lawyers and policemen and everything like that. Because, of course, there were no other people to fill these places that were needed. And it was a really bad time, and we saw in the movie that a lot of people who were involved with the killings of the communists were in parliament positions or wanted to be elected, and how far is this process right now? Are there people still in these positions?
Okay, and then I see face there.
Hello, I'll try to keep my question short. First of all, I'm from Malaysia, but I've been studying here in Germany since like around 4 years in Karlsruhe. So my question is, like, we are talking about like Indonesia, it's the concept of silence. But I think I've been like, after 4 years here in Germany, isn't it like too much emphasis on Holocaust and Nazi and Hitler? So my question is about, I'm sorry if you're like bored with this question keeps on coming, but I've been 4 years, but I still haven't got like the answer for this. The connection between like the German guilt until today, like what's the psyche of Germans today? Because how could a land like filled with like philosophers come out with Nazi and Holocaust? And right now, why is that all the angst against immigrants, the rise of AfD, NPD, right populism, when German is a very homogeneous society? I mean, it's not even like multicultural. I mean, yeah. And then when I talk to people, like Germans people, especially the old people, they say like, it's about this concept of verlorene Identität, lost identity. But how is that like the past and now is connected? Like how does it affect this concept of loss of identity? And is it because like the concept of the past is too bad, it's an unusable past, and people of German today just simply look at now and the future and all the technique and stuff? So how does it all relate? Thank you.
And there is one more up there.
I'll just quickly add to Laura's question. So adding to what's the current state in breaking up these fortresses of power that are allied with politics, what would you feel could be done by the Indonesian youth to support this? Because like 3.5 million paramilitary people supporting democratically elected parties sounds maybe a threat to this democracy. Because if you vote against them, who says they're not just sending exactly the same people after you? So what do you feel could be done about this?
Okay, should we? One more? Okay, could be.
My name is Darius.
Hello, Darius.
I'm a Nigerian. So I heard the first guy who spoke from Indonesia. I think with all the things that happened, it is high time that young people, especially, the young people, studying in other countries, when you hear about things and you're aware of what had happened in your country, you have the opportunity to take initiative and try to find solution. So this is my point. So I kind of worked with an American, like a non-profit organization, and we give a voice to voiceless people around the world. Then we use photography to do that. The thing is, a lot of hidden things are happening and people around the globe are not aware of it. And we need people to speak out. I was really surprised when I saw this movie tonight that I would think that it's actually the victims that kind of produced this movie, but it's not in the way I understand it. It seemed to be the people who actually did these things. But how can we give a voice to the voiceless? How would the voiceless continue to be voiceless? How can we advocate for them? So we are young. It is good to be optimistic. It's good to express optimism, but we are also responsible. We can take initiative and decide to effect change in our society. I also come in a country where there are a lot of things happening, but in my own case, I also took initiative. I have a foundation. I started helping, teenagers on the streets who are from extreme poor background, try to write to organizations and individuals so we can provide quality education for them. So my point is solution. How can we provide solution to this? It may not be total solution, but let's try and speak out. I think that will go a long way to effect change.
I think as a moderator, I will probably try to put these questions together, and I will first ask you about politics and how to give people a voice. Then I'll ask you about justice, if justice is possible, and you are responsible for the German psyche. Okay. So to get it together, in a country with 3.5 million paramilitaries who are still in power and who are still identifying with this, how to give a voice to the voiceless?
So to give more context, again, let's see the case of Germany and how they deal with the Nazi issues. The Germans lost the World War II. They are forced to acknowledge their faults, what they did, yeah. And with us, we could, yeah, more or less. But with us, it is the other way around. The one who did the mass murder ruled the country for 32 years. So it's a very difficult. And even in Germany, in the other way around, thank you. The Nazis, people are still in power. Now you could imagine what happened in Indonesia, where we have the person. So if you ask, is it still there until today? Yes, it is still there until today. But I will not be pessimistic because I think the point is that speaking for myself, as Indonesian living outside, I would like to know more about Indonesia, yeah, and try to compare what is happening in Indonesia and how is it in Germany. And when I see, yes, those people are still in power, but I'm really, really proud to see what the civil society has been moving in Indonesia. It's incredibly how the students fight for to voice the to give a voice to the speechless, as you asked. And you asked me how to give that voice, how to bring this difficult issue into the agenda. I think you have to ask Ms. Ri, yeah, because she's made it. Today, before I came here, I checked on Google and tried to type the mass murder in Indonesia 1965. And most of the time, the news came in 2015, where she and her organization make this event. So she bring this. For me, as coming from communication science, you did a great job in making this campaign. She used the moment of, I think there's a lot of communication students also here. She used this 50 years of, like it or not, we could speak about human rights or justice or democracy, but we're living in a real world where media is penetrating everything in your lives, as we discussed several times in ISWI in a few discussions. You have to put the agenda on the media, and she did a great job. 2015, we bring the issue all over. We still keep struggling, I know, Tante Sri. Our president promised before he got elected to bring this human rights issue as a big topic, but as many people still in a very powerful position, it's not going to be easy. And of course, again, therefore, I thank also the organization to have also placed this in agenda today. Yeah.
Okay, it's getting quite late. I want to pass on because of justice and back to the IPT, the International People's Tribunal. We have to get this clear. This didn't have any legal binding effect at all. So it's not that people were convicted and put into prison afterwards. It was a People's Tribunal which was held in The Hague, so there were hearings, some victims came forward and they were heard very, very far away from home in an international setting, but it didn't mean that it had any legal binding effect on Indonesian politics. So
like the Russell Tribunal concerning the Vietnam War.
Something like that. So it did help to bring a lot of attention, but to get these things clear who are not so familiar with the subject. So what about the prospect of justice, of bringing people to justice?
The question, is justice possible? Yes. It depends on two factors. First, the factors of the goodwill of the government, the goodwill of the state, and second, the pressure from the international community. With these 2 points, so it should be find the truth. The truth must be come out, and then through this truth, coming out of the truth, then the state have to acknowledge. We know from the film that all of this killer did their killing, the act of killing, under the pressure or under the
the order command.
The order, the command from their superior. This movement or this way to reach the justice being done in Indonesia. We from the IPT 1965 did the concept for the strategic. First, we have to do the socialization about 65 to bring up the solidarity from the international solidarity that justice is not a fairy tale. Yeah, that's your theme today. The justice is not fairy tale. And secondly, we try to bring this case to the United Nations Commission. So this year we tried to go to the UPR, Universal Periodic Report in Geneva, but we failed because there were in one point. So the first was against the death sentence, LGBT, and then blasphemy, and the human right, about human right, 65, only a small point. We tried inside Indonesia. You are fully right that the verdict of IPT is not a justice. It's not binding for the justice, but it have an impact, a really big impact in Indonesia, and we hope that this impact will grow up to movement. If all of us now thinking about how to solve the 65, how to remind 65 that everyone talk about it, then we hope that it will be just a movement like in Germany in 68. Yeah, in 68. We try to reshape the history. It was a very, very important point, because the history of Indonesia between before Second World War until 65 was manipulated, and now we try through investigation. We have a lot of researchers from all over the world to make back the history, not only from abroad, but also from Indonesia. It's around 26 researchers in Indonesia to do the job of reshaping our history. So we do something, and we move something, and we hope that we can do it together. We cannot do it all alone. We need you from Indonesia. We need you also from international. So I hope I also answer your question about what the thing about the solution. That's our solution. UPR, movement in Indonesia, pressure to the government. Thank you.
Actually, my feeling would be that this would be the perfect sentence to finish it, but there was one more question, and we promised to answer it. So the question was about German psyche and how is it it has to do with the Germans seeing themselves and being seen as very cultivated people. So philosophers and all that. So how do we come to terms with all this? One more thing as a historian, I have to say, we have to be very careful when we are talking too much about bureaucratic murderers sitting at tables and being engineers. The Holocaust is actually a very, 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 very bloody thing. And also 1.5 million people were shot in their villages, at their homes in the Soviet Union. So it wasn't something antiseptic which happened somehow very technically. Sometimes it was very much face-to-face, and we have to keep that in mind because it's not that well known, not even in Germany. So there were hundreds of thousands of people who at least witnessed it, and many, many thousands who were actually participating in this, and with literally blood on their hands. And they came back, lived normal lives afterwards, or became policemen, stuff like that, and they were never really brought to justice. Some of them were, but more generally, thousands of them were never brought to justice. So maybe you should, and try to get this short, because I think people are getting very tired, which is normal at 11 o'clock, but the microphone.
Yeah, you are totally right. I focused on the other kinds of perpetrators because they are so close to us. The others are so close to us, and they are so much out of focus after we have seen this kind of film. That's why I talked more about the other kind, because they are so familiar to us, but not as victims. So it's hard for us to imagine that somebody at the top level,
go on.
And on the top level, like, well, it's perhaps hard to. I want to get the attention. Like Heydrich, who had this musical education, being invited to one of the top symphony orchestras. And doing what he did. And the technological part came in as a very perverted idea of humanizing the working place of the killers. That they didn't have to do this hands-on job. That other prisoners had to empty gas chambers and fill this ovens. Therefore, that's not a contradiction. But your question concerning the German psyche. I don't think there is a German psyche. You talked about Indonesia, the country of 70,000 islands. And it's very important that we start to pluralize. And as soon as we talk about the Germans, the Indonesians, my country, your country, we are in severe danger to miss the main points. It's very interesting to look at very concrete cases like what you pointed to. This young policeman from Hamburg or Jena, and how quick they could be turned into a death squadron, having let the option to not to do it. But then suddenly the psychological phenomenon, nobody wanted to be the one who says, I can't do this, and declaring to all the others, and you are bloody killers in the case you continue. Or the phenomena you pointed to, this incredible, shocking reality that so many of very severe perpetrators had excellent lives afterwards. So with a margin, and this enormous suicide rate of survivors. Survivors who felt guilty of having survived while others didn't, but those who did, so for example, doctors doing horrible research and other killers, leading their normal life, and therefore we have to talk about methods to immunize conscience. Speeches like Himmler's speeches in Posen show how it works. You praise people for sacrificing your moral conscience for the good cause, the race, the nation, the leader, whatever nonsense, whatever fictional point. And then you are you have these reactions we have seen in the film at the end at some point. So killers realizing how awful it feels to kill babies and to have blood on your hand and parts of human brain, etc. But at the same moment, you can see that as a symptom for what you have sacrificed for the good, great cause. Therefore, we asking more differentiated question and not buying into this huge collective essentialist points, this quest for identity and purity and all this. We have a part of the solution already, because then from there we can start. And you pointed out rightly that Germany is not that multicultural, and that's exactly part of the problem. We have to organize ISWIs all over, and not just at universities. We have to organize situations where people from all over the world meet people from all over the world. And then you suddenly realize, oh, I have so much in common with you and with you. Perhaps more in common than with the two of us have, for example, from personality-wise. We have to come to terms with the situation the social scientists always come up with, that xenophobia and racism is not there the strongest problem where most people from other countries are. It's the other way around. Also those who live in areas with only a few new citizens from all over the world, and who go then to a big city and see how it could look like and how strange and foreign they would feel, are most likely to develop all sorts of fears others could play with in their propaganda. And therefore, it's what you do here is already a very good example of what we have to do in order to install the feeling that we all are best off in the case we live in global justice is your topic of this year. We all live in a world we can be different from each other without fear. And in order to be different without fear, that's a poorly translated Adorno quotation, we need to find out what is we all agree on. Mm-hmm. So this acceptance of human dignity that includes those who have been victimized before, and therefore doing work you do with your foundation is actually doing work for all of us, claiming dignity for those who have been killed and burned like garbage. Mm-hmm. Is a plausible and authentic way to claim we all have human dignity, and no human being has a right to define who is member of our species and who is not.
Thank you. I heard that Sonia wants to say shortly.
Does
something.
It work? Yes. Okay. I just have one comment on two questions. The first question was about the youth, and the second was how we can give a voice to the voiceless. My answer is only through education, good planned education, like to open for them a whole new perspective, and to see that as a youth they have a new perspectives, except being into violence and trained for violence. To empower them and to give them opportunities. Maybe here the civil society has the bigger influence, and events like these ones, like the more workshops, seminars, conference, when they can meet with other people, break down their stereotypes and prejudices that they have for each other, and finally to feel more confident to talk about the issues they face in their countries. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I would like to begin my closing remarks. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for being so patient. Thank you very much for not going to Oktoberfest instead. Yeah, well, it's been a very, very long evening, but I personally have learned a lot from it. For me, it was a great experience. Thanks, Mr. Bender, for coming, although you had a very, very difficult evening. Thanks for being here, Mira. Thanks for coming, Sonia. And thanks very much for all your works, Sri. And she wanted me to tell you that there are 2 books here. One of them is in Indonesian, and the other one is in English, the final report of this International People's Tribunal, which is a great documentation. I haven't had it in a physical way, but I've read it as a PDF, but I can absolutely recommend it to you. You can also, if you don't get enough copies, you can get it from the internet too, but get this one. And a very important book also in Indonesian, Dari Beranda Tribunal. Thank you very much for the organizers for having us here, and I wish you good luck.
So, lest we forget, let us not forget our past and embrace our history and move on towards the journey of forgiveness. This was the topic of this discussion, and we'd like to thank all the panelists and the moderation for bringing about a very insightful and rich discussion. So on behalf of ISWI, we thank you once again. And as a token of our appreciation, we'd like to present to you the ISWI cups. So big round of applause for our panelist and moderator. Thank you very much. So with this, we close, and thank you all. Good night.